Welcome to Are We the Only Ones? I'm Kathy,
Hi, I'm Ray.
and today we're going to talk about cancel culture.
Yes.
You want to start with your thoughts on cancel culture? Do you think it's
Okay.
too much?
I think
fair?
it's too much. And I think the left gets a lot of heat for the cancel culture. But growing up, I remember cancel culture starting with the right. Like, I remember kids in my neighborhood couldn't watch SpongeBob because he was a gay sponge.
Oh, that is a form of cancel culture, isn't it?
Yes. The Dixie Chicks.
Oh,
Or
Dixie
the
Chicks. That was the
now.
first one. Yeah.
And Harry Potter. So there was a lot. Yeah, it was something that definitely started up on the right, from my perspective.
Because I feel like boycotting is a form of cancel culture.
I think it was something that we've adopted and we've perfected
Okay.
on the left to the point where it's actually hurting us.
Right. Okay, yes, I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
So talking about pendulums, right?
Yeah.
So the right was really the hard, like, I remember getting mad about video games, rap music, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then now it's like the left getting mad at like Al Franken, and then kind of like shooting themselves on the foot. Now the cancel culture is at the point where you end up hurting yourself
Yes.
because you are so committed to the philosophy of the reason why you're
the
cause that, like, when somebody actually, let's say the boycott of the cancel culture works, like, do you forgive them if that company or entity changes and does what you ask them to, or it's like you're so committed that you're mad at them that it doesn't matter, there is no redemption anymore?
Yeah. I think that's where people are getting confused because we see people like, what's his name? Morgan Wallen, who dropped the N-word.
I don't really know who that is. Like, I kind of.
He's a country.
Yeah, I don't
He's
follow.
a country singer.
Okay.
He actually is very talented, which is like the frustrating part for me.
Okay.
Because I do want to cancel him. But he dropped the N-word. He got dropped by his record label. Everybody made a huge deal of it. And then what's her name? Paula Deen.
Oh, yes, I remember. No, I know that Paula Deen situation very well because I actually
Yeah.
was a big fan of Paula Deen, and I used to make a lot of her food.
Yeah.
And still, like, my meatloaf is her meatloaf recipe. Like, she
Yeah.
knew how to put a stick of butter and stuff and, like, make it taste good.
Butter always tastes great, though.
I gained a lot of weight during those times. I'm not gonna tell you. Like, that was crazy. So, like, I can understand, like, this is the question. Do you think that if somebody is canceled, you only want them to lose their public platform, but you don't want them to lose their, like, living, you know what I mean, like their ability to earn, or you want all of it? Or does it depend on the crime, quote unquote, of what they did?
I feel like it depends on the crime. So, like, Paula Deen, she got, like, completely canceled, right? She lost her Food Network contract, all of that.
Her boys got to continue with their own cooking
So
shows.
they
though.
have
So
like their own legacy kind of thing.
yeah, it like pivoted. It was like a transfer. Legacy.
I wonder if she gets a small percentage.
Oh, I think she does. I think they
from them.
take care of their mom. I think
Okay.
they owe it to her. So there's like the loyalty. I think she was a good mom. I don't think like
Yeah.
that's in question.
But-
What she says was very suspect. But even like Jamie Foxx was like defending her, trying to explain that culturally people in the South are just like. But that's also like, I remember him saying that he had gotten a tuxedo from somebody because he was playing piano at this guy's house, and then when he went to give it back, the guy was like, "No, I don't. Like, you've worn it now. Like, ew.
Oh.
Yeah, like that."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh my god," and so that's why his perspective, when he's defending her, I'm like, well, you've had to deal with a lot. You had to compartmentalize
Yeah.
a lot. Almost like, so I get that. Like, I respect that he was
Yeah.
trying to do that, but I'm also like, that was way out of bounds because she was saying how she loved, like, seeing black servers in, like, the old school tuxedo and tails, because and it was, like, bringing back, like, the specific, like,
So
the,
bad.
like, slavery type of vibe.
Yeah.
So it was not, there was no way around that.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, when we talk about, like, Target, for instance, is like a modern example of, like, cancel culture, where I think that to me was, we talk about it a little bit on at length, but really I feel like it was an unfair one for Target because they support Vote Run Lead, for instance, and with big donations every year consistently. And so I also see there's what it means, though, is that the corporate responsibility is important to the consumer now, which it was not as important before. And this is personal to me because when I started my clothing line, I had a 10% basically I was working with the human trafficking awareness because there was not that much awareness about human trafficking when I was doing fashion around like 2009 was like my like I was dressing celebrities and like hitting like getting covers, like a lot of good PR. So I was trying to use that by going to these Oscar gifting suites and like meeting celebrities, and then also I'm like, because they want my free clothes basically. So they're coming in like, oh, I would love this, and I'm taking their measurements, like you know, like Nia Long, I had taken her measurements, I had those like Candy Spelling came by, wanted it like, so that was cool. But then at the same time, I would have them posing. Because usually what you're doing is the brand is doing that because they want the celebrity to pose with your clothing, with your step and repeat behind so that you can show like I have legitimacy. Please like believe in this brand. So what I would also do is I had reached out to a nonprofit called International Justice Mission, and their mission is to rescue children from human trafficking. Mm-hmm. And so that time there was not a lot of awareness about that. So I dedicated 10% of my profits, which was unheard of for anybody to dedicate profit or 10% like to a charity. And so I remember thinking like, I hope, this picks up. I just hope people like not only care about human trafficking, but then also care about corporate responsibility and then start thinking about the association of like where your money goes and does it do good. I
support this brand because they're doing good. It's not just about the clothes. It's about the mission.
Yeah. And my clothing was custom for celebrities. So like I was never going to go mass market to be able to like do a message like that louder. I mean, maybe now with this medium, but like I felt like if I could get celebrities to learn about the cause and to learn about the charities that are working on their platform would be big enough to do that. So then later on, like Demi Moore started championing human trafficking, and then Ashton Kutcher had that. And like, that's a perfect example of also cancel culture. So he came up with the software. He was doing the human trafficking work that he did. He had a whole organization that was doing a lot of good work, and like I think it was like a lot of technology, and they were able to find predators and stuff. And then Danny Masterson, who was in that 70s show, in Scientology, committed a lot of it was alleged at the time a lot of rape through with Scientology. And then Ashton Kutcher, as a friend, wrote a letter on his behalf, which you can understand. Like, look, when you believe your friend and you work that closely, like it's a very hard decision to make to try to figure out like, do I support this guy or not? And you don't know, like you're thinking you believe your friend. I understand, like he's trying to be a good friend, but then he got hit later when they find out decide he's guilty. He gets found guilty. Like, then now the question is, how can you have this human trafficking organization? Can we trust you?
Yeah, and look at this. This happened right under your nose, and you still supported him.
But I think that, to me, that's almost like if you're in the dark web, and that would be like your way of trying to take somebody down. You go in and you say these things because the bigger picture is that this person is saving more children, doing more of the work, like what I was able to do, and that was so small compared to what he was able to do in terms of like saving. Like, if people really care about children, I'm telling you, human trafficking with children is one of the biggest, craziest, almost government sanctioned crimes now, because with like the border and they were like kidnapping kids.
Well, now like, this is nuts. Human trafficking with Diddy, and now he's associated with that too.
Yes.
So that's not a good look.
And also, like when I was doing fashion at like the high level, I was at a very like he was known as LA's godfather of fashion and tailoring, and I would have to do casting of models. So I'd see like model cards, and Ivanka. I've seen Ivanka Trump's model card, and I remember she was the only model in Trump model management that was something that you could book, because everybody looked. They just didn't look good. They didn't look like healthy. They looked like they were very Eastern European look, like a waif, but like not in a way that like would work for high fashion runway. But I also understood like the way that you can understand in those days, or even now, like a model exit strategy is either hopefully to hit a big campaign or to marry a wealthy man. And so the Trump model management structure, this is how they know so much about H-1B1 visas and like, no, because you have to use these visas to get these types of visas to get models in from other countries. Yeah. This is how there's a pipeline of models that are coming. This is a very well-known, this is not like a secret, you know what I'm saying? Like, but you can see how easily the human trafficking can happen in the modeling world when they're like putting them on planes, private planes. Well, it's because you're dealing with
doing it by the book.
Very wealthy people that control, like as we can see now, when you are like this Amazon wedding.
Oh goodness.
Okay. No, cancel culture. I want to understand how everybody that like is going to this wedding, this is when I realized, oh, no wonder it's the way it is, because like they can be our Democrats that are famous, that are like so upset with everything going on, are at this wedding.
Right.
And he is a pillar holding up some of the stuff because he's one of the supporters of Trump. I mean, and with Washington Post, Washington, is it Washington Post? The newspaper that Jeff Bezos owns?
I thought it was the Washington Post.
Because I used to be a subscriber. Now I'm not anymore with him.
You're like,
It used to be like, to me, like, see, that's how much I've now disassociated the branding of that being like a legit. I'm like, that's not legit.
It's
paper, right?
not legit anymore when you're buying.
Same with Wall Street Journal, because that's Rupert Murdoch. I used to totally read the Wall Street Journal when I was like 5th grade. I used to have a subscription to the Wall Street Journal because I was into business reading and stuff. And I'm telling you, when I see this, I'm like, oh, this oligarchy is like very real, because it's, these people are supposed to be upset with this guy because he's supporting this regime, and yet they're at his wedding, right? Yeah. And he's doing, I don't know if you noticed, but they are donating $50,000 on behalf of each, I believe that's what it is, guest, to like some like conservation fund for like Venice's like canal. Like these, there's like 3 charities in the local area they're donating to, and they said no gifts to their guests because they released the invitation, which was extremely, not an invitation you would think would come from a very wealthy person. It looked like an invitation, like legit, that you would do for like a tea party or like a bridal shower, or like like a kid's
party.
Yeah, like maybe like a 12 to 15,
like
something like that. But so it was very like people were making fun of it, and also like I did know. I knew I have worked with Lauren Sanchez before when I was a fashion designer, Average Child, and she would come and to our events and stuff like that. So she was a local news person and very friendly, very smiley, always like, happy. Like she was happy. She was happy to be there. She's, but
what did she look like then?
She looked basically the same, just a little bit proportionately smaller in terms of like, maybe her like bust size was smaller then. Yeah. And her lips were a little bit smaller then.
Her lips were a little smaller.
Yeah, but she was still like very smiley.
Face, I can see that she's got some work done. So then I just wonder like when that started, because I have not followed her journey through.
Yeah. It's
climbing the social ladder. So I don't know if she just like did more as she climbed up higher. But for some reason, when I'm picturing you talking about her, I'm thinking of somebody that just looks so like soft and young and feminine and natural.
No, she basically looked.
She always looked like that. Okay.
Yeah, she basically looked this way.
You're like
this way.
Like that.
She's okay. But I mean, Paris Hilton was also one of our models, and she actually wore Richard Tyler when she came out of jail. Oh. Because she wanted to look as respectable as possible, so she wore one of our suits, and then it was like quoted in Elle magazine that was her favorite new designer and all this stuff. And so that was an interesting time because like she wasn't canceled, right? Like I grew up, and my peak, like 26 to 30, like those formative years were like I'm working in this like high fashion house, and I'm dealing with celebrities all the time, and I'm meeting them before they go win these awards. So that's like I'm meeting them in a very specific time in their life. They're very, you know what I mean? I'm meeting the aura. I get to see aura compared to like Diane Keaton, for instance. I got to meet her, Jamie Lee Curtis. I get to be like, so I can feel like, this is how. Yeah. But the other thing that you have to understand is like some people have assistants. They're very, very yes men. Mm-hmm. And then you can't believe that this person who's this legacy A-lister that's been around for decades like needs this much like validation all the time. Like Jamie Lee Curtis was so cool because she doesn't care. I love that about her. I was like, do you want to go to the fashion show? Like, do you want
that vibe?
And she's like, I don't do that shit. I was like, I love that. I've never heard anybody say that. And then turns out she actually goes to the same hair salon I go to, because I go to what used to be Fred Siegel Beauty, now is Matthew Priest Salon. So I go to Matthew Priest, and then Sean James is her hairstylist that she like goes all over all her media events. She takes him with her. So, and they have like a product together. So funny enough, like have this, full circle. She's doing, I think, Freaky Friday again. Yeah. So it's like, oh my God, I trust you when you did Freaky Friday the first time and you won. That's crazy. And then Sean was like, I did her hair. I'm like, that's so funny. Like years later. So you get to see how like I can look at when the it girls, right? Like it was like Britney Spears and Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton going through their time, and then the cancel culture of like trying to how people
Affecting
treated them,
their downfall.
and then Kim Kardashian, how like there was really no, that was like the reverse cancel culture, right? Where you can turn something that would normally be an embarrassment into a business like pivot.
$1 billion business.
And
for
I
all of them.
I don't hate that because I like what it speaks to as the empowerment of women being
Right.
able to free themselves from a situation that may have been put upon them by like a man, right? And so that to me is both a story of hope, but also like a story
I
of
mean,
like,
it
well,
was genius. It was genius. Kris Jenner,
Yeah.
the way she pivoted that was genius because I feel like had it been, I don't know, maybe it was just perfect timing because the Kardashians weren't as well known. You know what I mean?
And they seem to be avoiding the cancel culture stuff that like would normally affect somebody like being good friends with people. Like they were also at the wedding. They're also at the Bezos wedding.
I mean,
So I was like,
I know a lot of people keep talking about Bad Bunny and Kendall Jenner. I don't really follow celebrities that much, but you know, Bad Bunny is like very outspoken about ICE. Like he announced a tour, but there wasn't a stop in the U.S. And then Kendall Jenner has a tequila brand, and is very like cultural appropriation-y.
Yeah.
And she's pretty much everything Bad Bunny, like I guess, has made fun of. Yeah. And they're together now. And then she hasn't said anything about ICE, and everyone's like, "You're making tequila, and you're not going to talk about the Hispanic community."
I think that's a fair point that people are making about celebrities with tequila brands are doing really well, and they're not speaking up for the Mexican community. Is freaking peak cultural appropriation at like in the most commercial level that you can see of the betrayal of taking something on and then not putting back into that community. That is literally the worst cultural appropriation you could do.
And I'm like, why aren't we canceling?
I'd like to give a shout out. I drink 1942. Thank you. So like, I do not drink any of those, the ones that we're talking about. I don't drink those.
I'm not a big drinker at all. So
if you're a tequila drinker, you know 1942.
Yeah.
The best. Okay, so what I have also, I think like we're talking about cancel culture and I want to, I lived in Japan, and in Japan they have a very strong boycott culture. Theirs is like extreme, where there was a company who did cookies. Yeah. I think like, I don't want to name like an American company, make it sound like they're bad. They're not. Okay, so think like a very huge company that would make like packaged baked goods for America, that level. This company had used expired milk in one of their cookie releases or something. Yeah. When that became public, the boycott was so extreme that company went out of business. So in Japan, I've seen cancel culture at its finest, and in Japan, that's the best, because if you do anything wrong in Japan as a company, the corporate responsibility is so high. It's called giri, which is GIRI, which is when you, it's like the honor code that they hold so dear that like when you hire a Japanese person, especially like someone who is from Japan and has only lived in Japan their whole life, there's no theft in Japan in terms of like in America when you do retail, the biggest amount of theft comes from your employees. But 70% of the theft that comes out of the retail is from the employees. Japan, it's like zero.
That's why they're always trying to replace employees with robots.
Yes, but that's also a complicated situation about pay. Yeah. Right? Like, I think if you paid people better, they wouldn't steal from you. There's the threshold of where you pay people the right amount and they won't steal from you because they don't want to risk their job.
That's wild. Right? 70%.
Yeah. That's why I was like, oh, retail in America is scary, because if I'm going to open, when I was in fashion, I was like, if I open a store, how the heck am I going to absorb 70% of that from my own staff? Like, that's hard, because the morale, right? That's a morale issue too, that you have like as a supervisor, leader, manager, owner versus your staff, and you want to understand why they feel they need to do that or whatever, you know? And sometimes just inherent in fashion culture in America is just like inherent, like you're trying to get free stuff from people is sort of the status. So when I was like peak as a fashion designer, I would have constantly people trying to get free stuff from me. People that didn't know me, that had they had nothing to give me in return. So usually when I would loan or gift to people, it was always like a celebrity that had an A-list ranking, or if they weren't, they were somebody that did something that I like appreciated. Like their work I appreciated. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give you because I appreciate your work. But then I would also have like people that I remember we were in a law school like panel about married couples that make it through law school and how to speak. Like this is the Cardinals of law school. They're like, can you guys come because you guys have been married the whole time and talk to new couples and see how like because most people get divorced through law school. I was like, really? So we did that. At the end of that panel, there was a girl who lined up and wanted to talk to me, and the first thing she asked me was free clothes. And I did not know this girl at all. And I was like,
you're like, no, girl.
when I'm like, come back to me when you're an A-lister and you're nominated for Oscar. I will absolutely dress you. That's what I said because that's the truth. I would because that's how I do it. But
the audacity.
Yeah, because I was like, I dressed Stevie Wonder for Obama's first White House Correspondents' Dinner. That was my first celebrity under my label. So like my standard of where I'm going to give you something for free is pretty high because my clothing is expensive. Like my clothing is like $1,000 to $2,000. Like it's not. So I can't just like give it away. And so, but the audacity.
She's like, hey, you don't know me or my name, but I know you. Do you want to give me something for free?
That happened all the time to me though. All the time.
The balls on that woman.
This is also one of the reasons why I started to like not really love it because I hated feeling like I was being. It just felt like you were being pecked at all the time and pitched all the time. So that's why when I have like now I have friends that happen to have whatever level of like celebrity, I never ask them for anything. Like recently I had a situation where I was going to go to this concert and I'd mentioned to my friend, oh my God, I was going to buy concert tickets to see Wu-Tang. And my friend Sherwood, who was the original manager, was like, dude, why didn't you ask me? I've like, we're friends and family. I had tried out for a Wu-Tang thing. And one of the Wu-Tang management was running it. And then one of the other partners, Mook, was the one casting it. So then that's how I showed up for the audition to meet Sherwood, who is the original manager and scene investor. So now because he's offered, if you ever want to go to the concert, please let me know. Duh.
Yeah,
like,
now you
how could you not ask me? That's okay. Now I'll ask. But I don't do that because I feel weird. Now I know what it feels like to have.
You know what it's like on the other side.
Yeah, you're gonna ask me for stuff and you can't. It's not a mutually beneficial request.
Yeah.
So that's another tip. If you're gonna make requests to people at like a certain professional level, make sure it's a mutually beneficial transaction that you're setting up so that they can say yes.
Yeah.
Because it's also like very entitled and rude to just pitch something that's one-sided when somebody has a lot to offer, because you are now putting yourself in this position where like you're just like another person they have to like try to avoid.
Yeah.
As opposed to somebody who's trying to bring value to their life and like isn't trying to like just take from them.
Right.
So that's another key way of like approaching that situation.
Back to the cancel culture with Morgan Wallen and Paula Deen. So he dropped the N-word. And then he got dropped by his record label. It became a huge thing.
I heard that part.
Yes. Okay. But then he got picked up by somebody else. And then he continued to be a butthole. He like got drunk and threw a chair off of a balcony in a hotel. He had to go to court. I don't remember.
Like Celia South? Most likely?
I don't know, but it was like in a hotel.
Okay. All right.
And then recently released an album that's been trending, like in the top 5.
Oh, so he has like the positive backlash kind of vibe?
Yes. It's like people want to support him for being such a butthole. Whereas Paula Deen, she like said this offhanded remark. Maybe, was as,
What was her that I remember hearing? It was like her brother was using it too a lot.
Yeah.
I think musicians across the board, talent, like comedians, at a very high level, right? We're talking like legacy level.
Yeah.
But country music, I don't know that. People will let you get away with a lot if you
know.
create music. There's something about creating music that people are like, you know what? I can separate that. Like Michael Jackson, R. Kelly.
I'm looking at that dynamic of Paula Deen saying something slightly racist, him saying something slightly racist, plus endangering the public. And then the Dixie Chicks, who are on the same level in country music, making a comment about George Bush. And it's like, these women are falling. But then this guy gets put up on this pedestal. And it's like, why isn't cancel culture working on him? Because they're artists and they're very talented. And they made just this one remark. I mean, now their music is super political now that they're the Chicks.
I think that there are two cultures going on in America.
And it's...
Right? Mm-hmm. One that accepts that and doesn't want to hold... That's the extinction burst is going to take us the longest, is the south of the Mason-Dixon line and certain parts of above them. right?
Yeah.
Like certain parts of like Albany or whatever, I believe, because I heard there was like Juneteenth, there was a lynching in
I heard there was a
Albany, and there
lynching.
was, I think, Tennessee. And so obviously we have a lot of work to do, but it's like these things don't happen the way that they used to happen, where like people would just straight up accept it and be like, okay, don't say anything, we're scared. I feel like there are certain places that push back, like, get out of town, don't do that, that's not okay. Like where you have some white supremacists, like groups that are showing up in certain towns, and then the town shows up and says, get out of here, and then they leave. I'm like, oh, that's great. So I feel like we have that country music segment is going to be expected to react that way, right? We're not surprised that they are still saying he's not so bad. I'm assuming his music must be good.
He is very talented.
Like, you can admit that you would go to a concert of his, or like, is that good?
I mean, I wouldn't, because I'm canceling him for myself. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, I mean, I would.
But it's hard for you.
It's hard.
Okay, so
'cause I do enjoy his music.
that means he's good. That means he's good. Right?
Yeah. So then people are probably like, why are you doing that? It doesn't even matter. Blah, 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 blah. But it's what matters in here.
Yeah. Like Michael Jackson's a hard one for me because I also saw Michael Jackson one time at the Universal City Walk. And it was the first time I've ever seen anybody be able to move like 500 people at once in one direction, stampeding, where I had to pin myself against a wall in the middle because people are running.
Yeah.
And I go, what's going on? They're like, it's Michael Jackson. I was like, leave him the fuck alone. Everybody leave him alone. And I mean, have you ever been to Universal City Walk in Hollywood? The thing is wide. Mm-hmm. The entire width. Packed, dense people, all running in one direction. So dangerous and scary.
Was it for an event, or was he just there?
He just happened to be there. And that's just,
that's the reaction.
Yes. And I don't see Superstar Paula. I've never seen that ever in my life. That's the only person I've ever seen be able to do that. And like, also some of those people may not have even seen him. It was also just the knowing that he was there, like you know what I mean? Like,
just getting the chance.
I just knew that someone could just say Michael Jackson and a stampede could happen. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was how powerful that the level of celebrity he had. So even he, like, I feel, because I watched that documentary and I'm like, there's a lot of things about that documentary. When you know truth about shady situations, and then you hear a certain language, you're like, oh no, they're telling the truth, because you can just tell by certain like vocabulary and certain ways that, like, when people sort of zone out and they're playing what's happening like a film in their head, and you can see, you're like, I know, like, they're telling the truth. Like, I know, I just know. Or there's like weird details that you're like, that is such a random weird detail, and there's so many of those that you're like, that's also a thing, right? But like cancel culture, I think for men is so different from women too. Like, look at what's her name? Amber, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. Like, with that situation, he's now talking about it all over again. Like, he's like, oh, I was a sucker, fell in love, and I'm like, the UK court, if you understand court rulings, like I was asking my husband, I'm like, wait, but they were both found guilty. It's just he's worth more. So it looks like when you look at the damages, he gets higher damages because his career is worth more. But she was also found to be telling the truth. Like, he is also wrong. And so he also owed her damages, but her damages were lower.
So basically they both were just
wrong.
Super
they were
toxic to each other.
Yes, and they both did bad things. And in the court of the UK, it's also and remember, our legal system comes off the UK legal system. So if they were like, no, we're absolutely sure in the UK, like, he is a wife beater. Like, that dude is horrible. So that's why I'm like, oh no, I know that was done thoroughly. That's two court systems that at least acknowledge that he did some fucked up shit to her. Right?
See, I didn't
But they're also saying, you also did some fucked up shit too, girl. You know, but it's not that he's not free of what he is accused of. Yeah. But people analyze it and incorrectly perceive it and now reiterate and regurgitate it like that. But that's not how it went down. He is not vindicated at all.
So he's not innocent. He did what he did.
Yeah, and it's official. It's not alleged because it's even in the UK court. You know, two courts. Like, you know. And I also think, like, if you already have that going, as a normal person, if you're Johnny Depp and you have all that, the only reason you put yourself through a second trial after already being found essentially guilty in the UK court is because you've got nothing to lose to try again.
Right.
Because if you didn't do it, you would not put yourself through that.
I'm a white man. I don't have to worry. I'm not gonna face any repercussions from.
That's why you can sit on the stand and laugh at everything. I was like, this guy, he totally.
Oh shit, he knows.
How would you laugh if you didn't do any of this stuff and you got proved unfairly? What he's saying, How can you sit there and laugh at all? You wouldn't. You'd be so stressed out.
With this episode is that cancel culture doesn't affect white men unless they cancel themselves, like Al Franken, because he stepped down.
Yeah, he really did not need to do that.
And he didn't need to.
He did not need to do that.
So they are untouchable.
Come back, Al Franken. If anything, you can come back now. Oh my God.
He would look like an angel compared to
AOC Al Franken.
He's like, I'm a comeback kid.
Can we do that as a ticket?
I don't know.
Dude, I'm telling you, that could work.
Maybe.
Al Franken, please come back.
But I mean, we're not the biggest fans of Newsom, but he's really.
Look, he's having a moment. I'm okay with it. Whatever. Do what you got to do. Get us back on track. It's fine.
Yeah, he's really trying to hold this administration accountable, and I think he's doing it alone. Shit.
I wouldn't say alone, but he's doing a good job.
He is.
He's doing a good job. I can't hate on it. I actually just realized I used to be mentored at the Tory Burch Foundation. There was a woman there named Terry McCullough who was like running I think she was chief of staff. Yeah. And she used to like talk to me and we would discuss like different things, and then she ended up leaving. And I just saw like her name came across something, and I'm like, oh, how is she? And I look her up, and I didn't know that the whole time I was like friendly with her, she was previously chief of staff for Nancy Pelosi.
What?
And the whole time I'm like, I don't know. I'm not hanging out with her, but the whole time I'm like talking to her, I didn't know that she had done all that. I'm like, oh, well, that explains why they're treating you so with such respect in this Tory Burch Foundation. You know, I was like, oh, I get it. You know, I realize like when I'm looking at how cancel culture in terms of like corporations and individual stars, right? There's different standards. Also, do we care about who's bringing the organization of the boycotts? Like, do we ever? I'm just asking this question. I'm just asking. Okay, don't get mad at me. But do we look at the person's life and see, are they
their ethics, their morals? Yeah.
Just in terms of giving mitigating circumstances to whoever you're boycotting. I'm just saying, give a fair picture to whoever you're about to take down at the knees. Who's, you know, are we throwing stones when we're all in glass houses? That's also that, because you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Happy for Costco though. You made the right decision.
Yes.
Because you're making bank.
I love Costco.
I can't even go into Costco. The lines are so long.
I know. I can't wait. Hey, they just added. So if you have an executive membership, you get in an hour early.
How much is that?
I think it's $120 a month instead of
a month.
Not a month. A year instead of the $60 a year.
God, expensive. Oh my God.
We are already like avid Costco people.
Nice.
Now we've just doubled down on all of our Costco buying. Okay. So, you know.
Okay, so in shareholders meetings now, they have reported that they are talking about how cancel culture will affect your bottom line, and to be prepared for shareholders to be aware. And I mean, this is kind of, but talk about shareholders. United Healthcare got sued by BlackRock. Yeah. Because they ended up taking care of all their patients, their clients, after Luigi Mangione went to prison because they were scared. So they started going, yeah, approved. And then BlackRock was like, you took too much care of them, and now our profits are lower as a shareholder.
Isn't that absolutely disgusting?
BlackRock.
And who do we
Dude, how do you
cancel that?
That's
fucking BlackRock.
That's
tough.
That's making money. Disgusting. That's a company making money without. If you take morality out of it and you make a money based on, don't worry about that stuff. Look, you can do really well. You can. I met a guy once who literally dealt in AR-15s, and he was sitting next to me in first class, and he was like, "How do I only like barely do this?" I think he said he literally had an AR-15 in the cargo hold, and he has one everywhere he goes, and it's all about cleaning. I'm teaching every police department basically in the country, all these different governments, and I was like, "Whoa!" Total like passport bro, was very proud of it. Was saying all kinds of crazy things, but in the end, he was like trying to get my approval. And I was sort of like, oh, wow. He was not admitting that he was a Republican. He was saying he was independent. But like,
he voted for Trump for sure.
He did. No, he said I would probably vote for Trump because of my business. I'm a weapons dealer. I'm like an arms dealer. And I was like, okay, I guess I understand why you would do that.
Nice. You talk to people on planes.
Well,
I do not.
Well, I'm in first class next. What am I gonna do? There's no other seats changing. I could see the flight attendants were looking at me like, are you okay?
I put headphones on and I'm just like zoned in. I'm reading on my Kindle. I'm playing solitaire. I got my headphones on.
It was funny because
they're chatting it up.
What happened? We were sitting down, and as we're like just getting settled, said something military related. And I said, something about, I got a PCS. And he's like, oh my God, if you know the term PCS, you're like real military. And I was like, yeah, my husband was in the Marine Corps. He was a captain. We were in for like a decade. He was Navy first, and then Marine Corps after. And then he goes, I was cool. I was in the Army. It was only like a year and a half, or like not even that long. But like then he made his entire career on dealing weapons.
Just
And he
after that
makes
year
a
and half,
lot of money because he's like, how do you think I fly first class? Like, you pay for these tickets? You don't just like upgrade? He's like, no, I like, I'm like, oh, okay. Because I use my points. Like, I fly, I don't necessarily like buy. Also, domestic business class and business was terrible. It's terrible. It's not worth the international business class, first class, totally worth it. Domestic, don't pay those. Don't even.
it's just a bigger seat. It's just a bigger seat.
Well, you can get for 80,000 miles. I can fly domestic first class, or I can fly international first class on Japan Airlines right now, and that's a $12,000 to $20,000 ticket versus a $1,000 ticket. Like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Not worth it. But you do meet people in first class and in business class when you're flying there. You meet them and you have these crazy stories, and a lot of times it makes sense that they're Republicans that you're sitting next to. Yeah. And I am.
Did he automatically assume that you were conservative because of your husband's background? Like his military career?
Maybe he did at first, and then I was like, oh no, I'm super freaking progressive liberal. Like, I'm crazy liberal.
Fuck you, God.
No, and we had deep conversations about it. But did he say some inappropriate things and even show me his like fiance, or he was about to go propose to this woman, and he shows me a picture of her and she's in her bra and underwear, and I go, what are you doing? Don't show me that picture of her. And he was like,
that poor woman.
But this is like sometimes I have the energy of being like a bro, and bros will treat me like a bro. And I get to, that's why, like, when I said one time I was like asking you, like, have you ever disappeared into a room, like, we were in a room full of guys? And I'm like, well, that's happened to me because I live with two guys.
Yeah.
And so then I became one of the guys. And in these conversations, where they'd be like, literally, I remember, like, it was like 15 guys in the room. And somebody goes, they're talking about things that, about girlfriends and things that they shouldn't be talking in mixed company.
Yeah.
And somebody goes, hey, you guys, Kathy's in the room, mixed company. And my roommates are like, dude, she's a bro. Like, she's fine. I'm like, yeah, it's fine, guys. Don't worry. It's fine. Ugh. So I'm like, let me just satellite ears. Let me just like observe and listen. And because you can learn a lot by listening and letting.
To these guys.
Because I want to know what.
Talking about women's.
Yeah. And frankly, it's like, it all comes down to they're just trying to find the best spouse, partner, wife, girlfriend, whatever. It's all about that. And so there's an endearing thing when you realize, like, all this toxic masculinity, all this stuff, it comes down to the approval of women.
Yeah.
And it's this is something that I have seen consistently over every meeting. So many Republicans on flights now that are stuck next to me that I have to talk to. And like, I mean, I met a great Republican that was like old guard. He was the former XO, executive officer, I believe, to General Schwarzkopf during like Gulf War I. Old guard Republican was so upset about this crazy new Republican like thinking.
Yeah.
And so it gave me hope to see that we do make them think, and they do feel bad, and they are having conversations within their party about like how they can turn this around. Yeah. But they will never, this is what I like that I can give them respect for doing that we don't do, is that they don't betray each other in front of us. Well, actually, Trump is doing. He's more of like, but
no.
For the most part, the GOP
doesn't
betray each other in front of us. Whereas
they have each other's backs more so, and we're very much like we have infighting, and it's very noticeable. Like
we have purity test vibes. So our feeling is like, well, we have the standard, we got to hold over to the standard, but it's like you literally taking out people for things that are so minor or nuanced to a level that it's not anything.
Okay. So for
bad.
example, David Hogue leaving the DNC.
Oh my God.
Right?
I'm so upset that happened.
And in that same token, the DNC is not fucking listening.
Well, he was proven correct
with New York.
Thank you very much.
So then I'm like, why aren't we following through? Why aren't you listening to younger people? So I feel like, I mean, he's separated. They went separate or parted ways.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how are we losing somebody like that? And how can we get them back?
Well, that to me leads into, do you remember Bernie Sanders? I don't know if you know, Bernie Sanders has been going on Joe Rogan, and he was on with Andrew Schultz. And they had discussed how could they have let you go, Bernie? Why didn't they let you get at least take the primary, like run in primary to like see if you could have the ticket, right? And I had not fully understood the weight of how important that decision to gatekeep him out by the DNC when he's like, no, that's true. No, you're right, Andrew. Like as Andrew Schultz was saying that there were people at the top that kept him out, and they were wrong, and they weren't listening to the people.
They weren't,
which is antithetical to democracy, right? And then when Bernie was like, I'm not saying that you're wrong. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know it was like that bad. Okay.
You didn't?
I didn't really fully understand because I still want to believe.
Who's the lady with the ramen noodle hair?
I don't know what you're talking about.
In the DNC.
I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
I can't remember her name right now.
Noodle hair. Help me out. I'm dying. Oh my God, I'm crying.
In 2016, and let's see if I can find this. We're going to pause. Hold on.
Ramen noodle hair. If that catches on, that's you. That's a t-shirt we're going to make. Ramen noodle hair. Ramen noodle hair. You heard it here first.
Dude.
Oh my gosh.
Because she got a lot of heat for keeping Bernie out of the DNC and moving Hillary Clinton forward.
So
in the primary. What's her name?
Did you find her? I don't know. Well, okay, this reminds me of the time when my husband actually helped draft a law that passed with with
Debbie Wasserman.
Oh!
Ramen noodle hair.
I know exactly. No. She's a very respected senator. Okay, and now that I'm like, oh my God. However, that is not an unfair description of the hair. Okay, it's not unfair. Okay, it's not unfair because I've also seen it when it's like laying flat. It does have that vibe.
It does look like, yeah. I haven't seen the most flattering pictures of her because I'm on the very, very progressive Instagram where everybody was shitting on her
I'd like
for
to apologize to Senator Wasserman.
Sorry, Debbie.
For the description of her hair like that.
I blame the internet.
But okay, so
sorry, Senator.
I think she did done something else that was sort of obstructionary at some point. I remember back in the day, I'm like, why would you do that? Maybe she jumped on the bandwagon against Franken with Gillibrand. I can't remember. It was like something around that time. There was something where I was like, no, don't do that. But so when Eric was trying to pass this law, it was for military spouses in New York so that when they would change states, they wouldn't have to recertify their licenses. When you change state to state, you have to recertify, like if you're an esthetician or any kind of thing with like a license.
It should be a perk.
So it should be transferred. Yeah. And because you're military, you're serving the country as a spouse, you are part of the backbone of the military infrastructure.
You have to move with your partner. Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
There was a Democratic woman who would refused. I think state senate refused to let the bill hit the floor for a vote because I think she knew it would pass. So then I remember saying to my husband, like, wait, that's ridiculous. You should be like, this is the state of 9/11. How dare you not allow military spouses in this state of all states to be able to work without having to recertify in a state that is so expensive. But you have the most expensive city and you have the most population, more than all combined Republican states. New York State has the most population by itself than all red states combined. So if you're thinking popular vote, oh my God, that city knows. So that's also with the mayor being voted in. That to me is a little bit of a litmus test of like where it could be headed. So what ended up happening, Eric ended up getting support from Jill Biden, who was second lady at the time. She brought it to Vice President Biden at the time, who then brought it to President Obama's office, who then championed the bill in New York State, which forced it, because he's championing it, forced the vote on the floor, because how could you deny this bill that the president is backing? And then she even voted for it after all that. I mean, I'm glad she voted for it.
Yeah,
but after all, so that was one of the first times I realized, oh my God, we have enemies amongst us.
Yeah.
Like, why are they here?
Right. And I feel like, and I hear that a lot from my friends that are Republican. It's like, well, I don't want to vote Democrat because you guys seem to be all over the place. Like, you guys don't have actually anything that you talk about. It's every time when it comes to campaigning, it's just don't vote for them because of this. Don't vote for Donald Trump because of this. It's not like, this is what I'm going to do to fix it. This is, these are all the problems, and this is how we can fix it as a nation. So that's what I hear. And I can't really, I'm like, well, we do talk about solutions. It's just you got to really dig in there.
Well, I think
it's not
one
on
of the
the
things,
surface.
One of the things I found, I used to get invited on these like White House calls when Obama was in office, and one was like an immigration call. This is actually kind of around like this immigration call now that we're thinking about it.
With ICE.
And so I got on the call, and all I had to you could like key in to do a question so that you'd be like in the queue. Everybody that got on the call, all they did was spend at least like 5-10 minutes and like thanking the administration for having the call at all. Valerie Jarrett was on the call. And we could literally hear her. Like, it's all, this is before Zoom, so we're all like on this like conference call, but you can hear. And I just felt like this is not helpful. All they're doing is introducing. There's nothing happening. There's no questions happening. There's no answers happening. There's nothing that you can take back to your organizations to like do anything. So I was like,
something useful.
So I stopped going on the calls. I get invited. I was like, I'm not wasting my time on these calls. And people be like, you should be on these White House calls. I'm like, there's nothing happening.
Like
there's nothing.
Did it feel like almost performative
Yes.
to say we had an immigration call, nothing happened during?
I mean,
the call,
I
but
think
we had the call.
The problem is the people that are on there are spending so much time almost like kissing ass. And you can't help it. I understand the power of the feeling. You're like, oh my God, I'm on the
That
call.
power dynamic.
And you're trying to like, this is who I am. This is who we are. Please like try to remember it. Like it's like that.
Yeah.
And I got invited to a White House. What was it? It was WHCD, White House. That's White House Correspondents. It was something else. It was the White House Women's something.
Yeah.
And Chief of Staff for Michelle Obama was there. And it was also the founder of like all these like, there's like I remember a shopping site that we used to all shop on.
Yeah.
I can't remember now, but she was like the CEO was there, and there's all these. Maria Bartiromo was there, and then at the end, that one was not performative. That felt like a very good event because it was big session. I actually got to ask the first question, which was, I would like to know why because I'm in fashion at the time, so I'm saying I'm a fashion designer, and I would like to know why we calculate our economic health every year based on the sales of Christmas and Black Friday, but you don't do any financial support for the retail industry or the fashion industry or the manufacturing industry the way that you do for farmers. Yeah. Don't you think there's a disconnect there? And everybody's like, well, that's a really good question. That one, like, they like sort of like, but it never went, as far as I could tell, it never left that room.
It just fell flat. It's just like, it's here. It's in the air.
I just said this question the whole, like, there's. So
and everyone's like, oh, that's such a good point.
So there's things like that that like
stayed there.
Where I'm like, it's great. Yeah. It's great. It's great that they all got to me. And that was weird because I had done the reality show at that point. So there were people that recognized me from the reality show. So I was in an elevator. Somebody was like, oh, I just saw you. That is so awkward. I can't.
And you were like, please don't talk to me about it.
But I'm like, oh, did you like it? Because you don't know how this person wants you to show up for them.
Yeah.
Because you were on a screen.
Yeah.
And then it was really, there's just so many weird, awkward moments I had after being on the show that people would see me out in the wild. And I'd be like, because I'm, in my mind, still me.
Yeah.
But they see me differently. And then there's also this, like, a letdown if you're not in the environment they want you to be in. If you're in, like, a very normal, like, I remember I was learning, I had never opened a large retail store. I'd only done couture, celebrity, so which is one-off. You're, like, literally measuring the person, you're making it, and then that gown is, like, $5,000 or $10,000. It's a one-off. That's it. Versus mass market, Uniqlo, Japanese department store, not department, well, yeah, I guess, and learning all that, and then seeing like, oh, this is a lot different in terms of, I managed, I think I was like 75 people.
Because it's more like fast fashion and all of that, and that's like kind of when that started taking off as well.
Oh yeah, well
versus like customized.
Yeah, and it's a totally different animal in terms of like training people because you actually have a huge staff versus like. And I can appreciate like big retail stores like Tiffany and Uniqlo, they build out their store and then they literally have you train in the fully finished store with all the product in it. And you're literally making fake sales to all your other staff. Like it was
nice.
super, I think for like 30 days before, we were just doing, everybody was like, let's pretend. And we're just doing it. I had
we're
zero.
All pretending.
Yeah, I was never late, not once. I had no errors. My entire cash route, which was like 75 people, which is a large team. Was always like on point. It was the first time I managed that many people.
They expect that because they're Japanese too.
Yeah, I was like militant. I came in militant.
They're
like,
hard.
yeah, I was. Yeah, and it was crazy because I was unceremoniously fired because I've never been fired in my life until this job. I had gone on vacation and they had changed the rules of how they notate. In Japan, if you find money on the floor, you have to turn it into the cash wrap and they note it. And if you put it in your pocket, it's considered stealing from the customer or stealing from the company. You get fired for that. So they would track us and they would test you. So if they put money down, you find the money. If you put it in your pocket, they see it. And they had cameras like casinos. So they could like zoom in on us, like tight. And we knew this. So while I'm gone, they changed. I had taken a notation of 50 cents, turned it into somebody. They changed the rules, and when I come back, they say that the way that I notated before they changed the rules was wrong, and now I'm getting fired for that.
50 cents.
Because what turned out was like my boss was upset because the top head guy had been saying like, "Oh, dude, she is really, really catches on. Is very, very like on point because she found this gum wrapper that I put down during the cash wrap. It was all clean. She walked out. She found it right away. And then I think like the way he was speaking of me, my supervisor got a little bit like, dude, what? Like, what are you talking about? Kind of thing. Because she was fluent Japanese. So she's bilingual. She's
okay.
like, what? Like, I'm like literally fluent, like doing all this stuff. And so I started feeling like a target on my back.
Right. Is this before or after you lived in Japan?
After.
After?
Yeah.
So then you already
I was
had
so
like,
Japanese.
yeah.
I was like standard Japanese. I was doing like, I was like, you know.
You were ready.
But the day that I got fired, my entire cash shop was so stunned because I had no errors. We were the tightest thing that I got word that they were all going to walk out.
Oh
on my
goodness.
behalf. And I was like, that is the most sweetest, and I am so touched, but I cannot let you guys follow me out because I have nowhere to put you. If I had a place to put you for work, I would say, yeah, let me take you and like employ all you.
Okay.
But I can't, and I can't take
go.
the responsibility of 75 people walking out on their job.
Yeah.
For
their
me,
benefits,
and what,
their pay.
And what nobody had known was I had filmed the reality show. It was about to air, and I already had my own stuff going that I was going to be okay. And so I couldn't let people, but it was so touching to hear that.
Aww.
Like, you know,
yeah.
I'm like, no, don't let them do that on my behalf. No, please don't.
Like,
my
you just stay your ass. You just stay
no.
your ass in there. I'll be all right.
But if Uniqlo only knew that day, that would have been a very interesting day because it probably could have 75 people walk out. That make the news of like, you know, this kind of like labor.
Well, that's so crazy because it was 50 cents too, and it's like.
But it was veiled under a 50 cent notation firing. But it was really some other political thing.
Else, yeah.
And then it was funny because
that's
then
your
those
cancel culture.
Yeah, like within those
Japanese.
I think those last couple of weeks, there was like the Elle magazine where I'm in because of the show. So we're like, is this you? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, I knew. Because people would tell me, my other supervisors, who I'm still friends with now, were like, I could tell you weren't supposed to be here. We could all tell you were not supposed to be here. And I'm like, what do you mean? Because I was like happy to... I had done so much like high fashion stuff, and there was so much drama that was unnecessary sometimes that I was just like, this is kind of toxic a little bit. And I was like, I need this industry to change before I re-enter because I'm too altruistic for all of this drama. And so when I left, I was like, I would love to go into like hard, like mass market retail where it's just like corporate structure working. I miss corporate structure. I loved it. So I was like, let me do that. And then I found another level of political stuff where it was like, when people just sense that you're like not supposed to be here or you're going to ruin, they have a good thing going. Yeah. They're on a career path. You're about to mess it up. And they know that you're going to mess it up. And they're going after you. And I'm like,
ready to take you out.
I understand now. This is everything to you. And this is not everything to me. And I actually have a lot of other options. So I'm going to just bow out anyway. It's no big deal. But then once I bounced, it was crazy because then people saw like the airing of the show. And then I was also in a New Year's Eve, directed by Gary Marshall, who directed Pretty Woman. I was also in that movie as like a background actor that got upgraded is what it's called to a principal by him. And it was like the craziest experience when that happened. So then that comes out at the same time too. So people are like, did I just see you in a movie? I'm like, yes, you just saw me in a movie. Because I'm not talking about it. Yeah. So then there's this other feeling like, why is she talking about
these things happening? And you're like, this is the least of my worries.
Yeah, I'm just like,
I'm not prioritizing
and
this.
Here's the irony. I actually really wanted to just do really well at Uniqlo. I really would have loved, if they had given me the opportunity. Because first they tried to hire me and then I was like, I'm actually going to a reality show. And they're like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, no, I really got to do the show. I can't work for you. So then they're like, well, this is your only chance. And I was like, I got to do the show. Then I did the show. And then for some reason, they like remembered my resume. And they called me like, look, we just feel like you actually were a really, really good fit. And we want to like revisit your resume. I know we said we would not give you a second chance to like say yes, but we've changed our mind. So then I come in after the fact. Yeah. And now I'm like, I'm so happy to work for this company. Like after going through this like reality show crazy series, like where stuff was like not really the way it was like pitched to me. Some shady stuff happened, some other like really weird, like not cool things that happened that I didn't necessarily tell them about. And so like production about. And so like there's like a lot of that where I was like, I just want to be a normal person. Like more than anything that I want to just have a normal job and just be a normal person, just make it through the normal thing and I was like, they're not gonna let me do that here. Everybody here has their place and I think I'm messing it up. And then I got verified that my friend was like, yeah, you really screwed up that thing when you came in and we had like a pecking order and you really screwed it up because you came in
and just put you in the middle.
No, it's just the way you perform.
Yeah.
We had it everywhere, and then all of a sudden you came and you knocked out. You were like the second highest performer all of a sudden coming from Japan and everything, and it threw everybody off that was like had their power.
Yeah.
That were the same kind of like level as me, but I came in way late. So this explains I was supposed to be in this group with them. And then they waited for me, and I came in at the end. Remember, they're like, "Well, we actually do want you." Remember, because I taped the show for 6 weeks, so all those people who had been training for 6 weeks, I was supposed to be in their group, and then I come in at the very end, and I get to do all this. And how did I train all? How did I know all this stuff? So it's just because it's just like I don't know, just the way my brain works, and because I lived in Japan and saw how Uniqlo functioned in Japan, which is very so good customer service. Customer service in Japan is the epitome of customer service. However, you need a 30-minute window to make any transaction because they're going to wrap that thing in 5 different ways and then slowly walk around and hand it to you with 2 hands, and like it's a lot.
It's a lot.
You can appreciate that's why they wait in line so patiently. I have a
used to
different
it.
personality in Japan.
Yeah.
I'm the most patient. I will wait in line forever.
It's worth it because I know
that's
the service
philosophy is like if you wait in line, there's a reason why they're waiting in line. They're waiting in line for something that's good, so they don't mind waiting. Whereas we are like, shortest line, like.
Yeah.
It wasn't that good, but it was shortest line.
Right.
I got my food fast. It's like,
yeah. Because everything is so fast and it's like instant gratification.
Yeah.
That's what matters here.
We can learn so much from Japan, though, like how everything functions well. But it is because everybody agrees to be the same. So there's an oppressive culture of like you have to do everything properly. Like when you're on a train, you never talk. There's no talking on a train at all. There's no. Then if you're in the countryside, you can eat on a train.
I did see something about that. This woman, this influencer that I follow, she's like, even though this train is packed, like we're in like sardines or something, there's no one talking. Like you're very, very quiet.
Because the number one paramount thing in Japan is like, I feel like not creating discomfort for other people.
Okay.
So
what if you have children?
They are totally behaved. The only children you hear on a Shinkansen bullet train or a JR regular rail
American
train
children
are foreign children. Usually American children that are based in Japan, like we were. They're children. And so you're like, oh my God, it's American. I'm so embarrassed. Like to the point where sometimes when we went back to Japan with the kids, Eric was like, I don't want to go on we're staying in Disney because I feel embarrassed they're going to be loud. And I just don't want to deal with being embarrassed.
That's how I'm feeling. I'm like, if I take my kids anywhere, my kids are loud.
Okay. This is my point. Your kids are so beautiful and they have blonde hair. What ends up happening is every Japanese person go, oh my God. Oh my God.
So beautiful.
They're so beautiful. Can I take a picture? Shashin? Daijoubu desu ka? Onegaishimasu. Hi. And I was like, please, would you mind? Would you do me this favor and let me take a picture with your child? I have experience having to wait at anywhere, but like Disneyland for one example, because people lined up 15 people, deep Japanese people taking a picture with my friend's kid. So
what if I say no? Is that rude?
You can say no, but you kind of don't want to because they're so nice. So like, it's fine. You just do it. But like, again, you learn patience. Like you'll never learn patience in your life the way you learn it in Japan. If you see a line of people, this happened to me. If you're in a department store and there's a line of people at the cash register and you need to pee, and you're just like, can I go to, like you normally you go up to the register, excuse me, can you just tell me where the bathroom is? And they go, boop, that way, right? I go, in Japanese, like, excuse me, can you tell me where the bathroom is? And she, chotto matte kudasai, which is like, please wait a moment, because you never cut, not even for a question. I'm supposed to wait in that line for the question. Of
what if you pee
10
your
people
pants?
deep. I'm supposed to wait. What? Yeah. And so it's just I gotta go find it.
I know
like,
it's a cultural thing, but also it's like you had some kids. What if you peed your pants?
Well, they're also like if they see kids, they'll help you faster.
Yeah.
But like things will happen. Like for instance, at the airport, I remember my parents. I was taking them. They were gonna go home.
Yeah.
And we were a little bit late. When I'm with my family, we're always running late. So like we were late, and I'm like, they're not gonna make this plane. So in Japan, you can talk to a gate agent, any worker there, and be like, my family's gonna be late, or we're gonna be late, and they will rush you through to make sure you get on the plane. Whereas in America, JFK, like, I'm gonna be late.
Good luck.
Should have come earlier. And I'm like, oh my God, why do we have no courtesy in this country? Even I remember going to Williamsburg when I had my kids, my first child, it was just the baby at the time, and he was in a Duna stroller. You pull the wheels out, and I'm like going there, just me and him, and trying to eat at a restaurant, a very actually well-known restaurant. I think it's closed now, but it was very, very famous, like hipster restaurant. And they're like, we don't have room for that in here, and we don't have high chairs.
Talking about the stroller?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, I'll just put them on my lap. That's fine. And I'm like cutting steak and artichoke hearts that were on the grill. That might give you a hint of what restaurant it was. And so like, I after that decided I'm only going to hang out in Park Slope, which was a area of Brooklyn which is like known for families because it was like a supportive environment there. But that's how not nice America can be to people, to our own people, let alone. Well, actually, epitome right now. How are we going to have visitors coming when everybody is now undocumented if you're a tourist,
right?
And then getting detained by ICE. There's a Canadian that just died in ICE custody, and there's a baby. Right, there was a woman who died who had a stillborn.
She was 5 months along, 6 months along, and she was asking for help.
They gave her cockroach-infested food. Her stomach started to hurt. She was in shackles when they forced her to deliver her stillborn baby in front of everybody in that prison cell.
That is
disgusting. As somebody who has also delivered a stillborn baby at 28 weeks on my first, that is the cruelest, most horrendous, repulsive, disgusting thing. If you're a gentleman at all in your system as a man, you will not allow this to continue on. This is absolutely horrifying and inhumane. This is a war crime.
It is.
Under Geneva Conventions, you can't do
Did you
these things.
see that thing that I sent you? We're on the Human Watch. Watch.
We've been on the Human Rights Watch list for over a year.
Yeah.
We're considered very unsafe to come travel to if you're a foreigner.
Yeah.
We're losing a few $1 billion.
You know what the
8.5 billion
ultimate cancel culture is going to be is when the rest of the world cancels us.
They have.
And we're
already
just fucking stuck in this filth.
We really are. Sometimes I say it's not for them to be kept out, it's for us to be kept in.
Yeah.
And I think it's crazy because there was the diversity inside. Oh my God. There's a Vietnamese man who served in the Navy. Cao Hung or Hung Cao is his name. And he is the new Secretary of the Navy, I believe. He's a Trump supporter. He's Vietnamese.
That tracks.
This is what I need to understand about. I need to explain this about Vietnamese people to everybody out there because you need to understand it's not as simple as like they're just Trump supporters because half the time they're voting with the Republicans because the Republicans were the ones that, according to the way that Vietnamese people feel about the Vietnam War, the Republicans were the ones that were fighting against the communists and the Democrats decided to leave. That's their cliff notes on why they vote Republican because they feel like Republicans are always like pro-Vietnamese. From Vietnam, pro-Vietnam, like the country. And they don't understand the nuance of racism here, any of that stuff, because racism for Asian is also...
More Asian women voted for Trump than Harris. Did you see that poll that came out?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I want to know the breakdown of what Asian groups. Do you know? Because there's a difference, like Japanese versus...
I think it was Vietnamese women.
It's going to be... I'm not surprised because... Those were the flags that were on Insurrection Day. You would see Vietnamese flags. And I was like, why are Vietnamese flags being flown for this? And it's misguided loyalty. Because if you're anti-communist, why are you fighting with the guy who's friends with Putin right now? Vietnamese people, I want you to understand that does not make sense. Okay. And my family in Vietnam was very interesting because I came from sort of like almost like aristocracy in Vietnam. I don't really understand the depth of it because I came... back to Vietnam like when I was 12.
So
I grew up there like that.
When you talk about that, though, it's really weird because my family is from Laos, and Laos is still to date the most bombed country per capita.
Right.
Because of the Secret War and also the Vietnam War. There's two things happening at once. And my grandfather flew to the White House met with JFK. And they were the ones who was a Democrat who was talking about getting more troops on the ground to help. Nixon, who was a Republican in 1973, is the one who pulled out of the Vietnam War, ending all of that. So why do they have that?
They think JFK was a coward and pulled out of the Vietnam War. That is what I've been told from my...
I literally just looked it up because I was like, I swear it was Nixon because we've had this conversation amongst my Southeast Asian family,
right,
about this because I have a family member who's in the military. They live in New York, and they're very much like independent but lean more conservative. And they brought up that point, and I was like, no, it wasn't a Democrat. It was Nixon, who was a Republican. Like,
I think it must be that they believe that JFK campaigned to get out of Vietnam, and that maybe Nixon
And then
was
once he was
in office, but
assassinated,
then
he just-
like, this is the other thing about the Vietnam War. I am so like almost like pre-traumatized by it that I watched nothing about it until COVID. Then I watched Full Metal Jacket. Then I watched Apocalypse Now. Then I was just like, I need to, it's time. I'm a freaking grown-ass woman. I need to freaking learn about this stuff. And from the perspective of like America and the pop culture, and then also being military affiliated, it's complex, right? I'm an American.
Mm-hmm.
My family served. My husband served with the military for a decade. I am as American and patriotic. There's all kinds of other things that I have done to show my patriotism to the military, and been recognized for it. I have plaques. I have certificates from them for things that I have done for like honorable service that I've done in my role there. And so it's hard for me to see misguided Vietnamese people, Americans, but I also understand that geopolitics is so vast and new, and like as an American, obviously I was not taught properly all of the nuance of everything. Yeah. And I know that for sure. Right. And also the complicated history that we see even right now.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm wondering too if, because it was 1963 when they went in, right?
Even the dates, I don't even know that well.
Oh, okay.
I know 50 years ago.
I'm wondering if it's because
50 years ago
JFK started or set troops on the ground there, and then they're mad about that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I just remember it was like they were. It's hard to say because there's people in Laos now that if you ask them, they're glad that the royal family fell. But right. They have to say that.
Oh, there's also that. Yeah, it's. I mean, this is the other thing is it's like my. Well, okay, on the Vietnam tip, that's really weird. Yeah. When I was at the Asia Society and Museum Gala, where I was recognized as an up-and-coming Asian American designer in New York to watch, one of the people there was Henry Kissinger. I'm in the room with Henry Kissinger, and I did not, in my mind at that time, this is before I saw Anthony Bourdain talk about how much he hated Henry Kissinger and why, because he had bombed the shit out of Vietnam and like destroyed, and I was like, oh, I didn't think about it like that. My family, and to the extent that I have family that even is like very patriotic, I have family that works in the government, okay, doing very patriotic. So I totally understand there's a very hard Republican side of my family because of what had happened. I have an uncle that was shot by the Viet Cong. This is why some of my family will always be hardcore Republican, will work for the American government, and will be loyal to the end because we were victims of the Viet Cong, okay? Our family was taken down by the Viet Cong, and we survived it. And so I was told, like, Americans are a country that we should always be so grateful and respectful to because they are the only country that sends people, their own people, to a country they have never been to, know nothing about, to defend that country with their own blood. No one else does that like America does it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's true, Dad. That's fair. Like, so then when I would go into the military life, I was like, I was so proud because I was like giving back for what this country had done for my country of origin, right? And I was like, I feel like I'm not just like a freeloader in a sense, right? Obviously, you're not really, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I felt like I was giving back, right?
But
so
Henry Kissinger.
To find out that Anthony Bourdain hated Henry Kissinger, and I love Anthony Bourdain because how much
he... smack in the face to have him there.
So that's why it was interesting because I felt like, oh, wow, my parents looked at like this guy was the one, they were brave to try to help. But they don't look at it like they, but I don't, but this is the thing about what the American perspective of how history was and the way it happened in our country, the way it happened for our people, the things that we're embarrassed about, right? It's so different than when you go to that country and ask them how they feel, if there's a lot of anger, there's all that stuff too, because sometimes there's an understanding that like, this is the growing pains of a society because Vietnam now is the second largest growing economy in Southeast Asia right now after Singapore. That is crazy because you can get a 5-star hotel over there for $44 a night. So if you understand how much money you have to be making when you're that inexpensive, the level of speed that you are growing at to hit that pace is, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now I'm almost like, look, I understand why it'd be scary and everything, but if you were to be deported back to South Korea or Vietnam, you would actually be better off. because other than panicking because you don't know the language and panicking, if you can get over the initial panic of like, I don't know anybody and
I
go
don't know
like,
anybody. I don't know what. I don't know language.
people will help me if like I'm one of the people that got like I'm American. Use your Americanness. This is the one time your privilege of being an American can help in an Asian country. If you actually start like using that, you can actually become a superstar. Because in Japan, you can become a superstar if you speak English. If you are a superstar, it's just one of those things that it's an anomaly because there's
how
a
long that will last though.
dude. There's been white guy with the Thai jobs. What is it called? The white monkey job or something in China. I used to go to China in 2008, 9, 10 regularly. That job is still there. So
yeah, but I'm just like, how long before they're like, America's or your whiteness doesn't. I mean, okay, whiteness I feel like is different than your Americanness.
Definitely.
For sure. So how long before being an American won't play in your favor because of how the world sees us as a whole?
Okay, this is
because we are losing power. We're losing our pool.
We're at the lowest respect level that we've ever been. The U.S. dollar's dropped like 10%, which is also the lowest and fastest it's ever done. Like in 6 months, right? So I think we are seeing that now. Yeah. They are having meetings without us.
Yes.
Like really big meetings without us, to the point where they're not even afraid to keep us out of the meetings, even though we have the most nuclear weapons. That tells me like they're just like, we are just so fed up. I was watching
We can't rely on you.
There was a clip of like a German. I have it. I'll show it. But basically, she was talking about Putin. Like, oh man, Putin. When you talk to Putin, he knows everything. He knows. You have to know everything in and out. He doesn't need a book. He just sits there and talks to you about it. He doesn't need like notes or anything. He just knows, and like he is prepared. Mm-hmm. And they go, and that's much different than Trump, right? And then she just like started laughing. Like she just couldn't. She wasn't prepared for that question, and she just didn't have an answer. She just like sat there and just started laughing.
Yes,
which is so indicative of
president can't read.
He comes completely unprepared. Mm-hmm. And just like throwing spaghetti at a wall. That's what it feels like to me. His diplomacy is just throwing random stuff at the wall and hoping that he can like he just made I just watched this video that they made on their official White House page.
Oh, the bomb, Iran.
There's that, and then there's Usher, Daddy's Home. And it's playing him coming on because
cringy.
Because there was a European leader that was making an analogy that like when Daddy. And then he was like, somebody else goes in an interview, how do you feel about so-and-so calling you daddy? And then that's how, I didn't know he called me daddy. And then now they make this social media. But it's so beneath the office of the president to do that type of social media. It's so like lowbrow. Like it's so, but I was it Andrew Schultz? I had heard him say that the reason why he thinks Donald Trump is doing so well is because he talks like a common man. He doesn't talk like, he talks like a blue collar dude. That's why he connects with people. Even though he's lived a very privileged, rich, opulent life, he speaks like a dude that like wears overalls and gets his hands dirty. And I was like, that actually, I can see that. I can see that.
But at the same time, on the global stage, our spotlight is dimming on the U.S. That
is good though, right? Because that means that good and bad, there's still the measurement that's like intact. Because if they didn't, I have to believe that the country can hold. I'm praying. Everybody I've asked is like, do you think that the country will hold these next 4 years? Like, can he actually take this country down? And most people are like, I don't actually think he can take it down. And I'm like, okay, I thought he could. So I'm like I'm going to reoperate my mentality about this. Like, okay, it's not the end of the world. Because I'm operating like, it could be the end of the world. Maybe we're being too much. And
maybe we're too nonchalant about it.
Maybe it's just it's like too dramatic.
Too dramatic about it.
Yeah. And like when we're talking about like calling him racist or calling Elon or anybody racist, and they're not racist. I realize like there are segments where like he's this Secretary of the Navy that he's promoting that he just announced. He's Vietnamese, right? Well, that's DEI, right? Mm-hmm. So like how can I call him? He's totally right. He just elevated a Vietnamese man to Secretary of the Navy. So then I'm like, okay, so if you're a Trump supporter and you're like, he's not racist, there's a point, there's proof that he's not racist. Then you have like them elevating Ben Carson, right? Like he's working with Ben Carson a lot. That guy's well-known black surgeon.
But I feel like there is that highlight of tokenism.
And no, I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, it's like,
yes.
Well, look, I'm not racist, even though I'm implementing all of these racist laws, these racist executive orders. I have Stephen Miller and like his first term, Steve Bannon. But look, it's not really that bad because I got this black guy and I got this Asian guy and I got this Hispanic woman and I got this black woman.
Well, Clarence Thomas was the first time that Democrat, when Clinton did that, I was like, really? Like, that's the guy you're picking?
I mean,
like, that's not
Joe Biden fought for that.
I mean, I remember those hearings. I remember watching those with Anita Hill and just thinking, like, dude, I can't believe we're having a discussion about pubic hair and Coca-Cola. Why is this guy even being considered? That's crazy.
Right.
That's crazy. And I'm thinking this, like, as a little kid. I'm like in, like, a big T-shirt, like, nightgown watching this. I remember just thinking, this is crazy. And so I feel like the long game of all this is, like, they're just moving the chess pieces around so they can still maintain power. The racism and the cancel culture, they're trying to work with that because the cancel culture, they actually are afraid of that. I can feel that they realize that is a real thing, and that's what the shareholders meetings are essentially saying, that cancel culture is real.
Yeah.
It affects the bottom line. We should be aware of it. Maybe we have to work about how we do things that are inclusive. There's also, I know that they're reframing inclusivity, diversity, DEI in general into belonging and leadership.
Yeah.
So that's now, instead of making it sound, for some people, divisive, for some people, they just feel like it's divisive because if you're not saying the words diversity, equity, inclusion, you're just saying DEI, DEI, DEI. You can minimize what it means. You take the meaning out.
Yeah.
And easy to say anti-DEI, right? Because you're not saying, I'm anti-diversity, I'm anti-equity, I'm anti-inclusion. Like, what? To say I'm anti-leadership, I'm anti-belonging is crazy.
Right.
And this way, people that are not people of color may feel like they can come.
I'm like, it sounds crazy to me to say that you're anti-diversity. Wouldn't you want some diversity? Wouldn't you want inclusion for people that have physical disabilities, for veterans? Wouldn't you want those people to feel included?
So this is what I think is happening: is these people
they've weaponized.
Well, maybe they lost a job to somebody. Maybe they lost an opportunity. Maybe they've been trying to get work and they can't find work. And the easiest way to blame why they can't get work is all these other people that are less qualified than me got the job. Look at me. I should be able to get. So there's validity to feeling like, if I've been looking for a job for a long time and I can't get a job, and other people seem to are doing well and they're thriving, I'm going to feel some sort of way as a human being,
right,
that this is unfair, or unfair to me, or I've been dealt a bad hand, or all the things that justify, so that you can live with yourself when it's not going your way.
Yeah. But who's to say these people are less qualified?
I'm not saying that they are. I'm saying that's
like
what they're
in
thinking
their
of,
brain.
so that's how they can justify being upset about it.
Yeah, I did see a post about, like, you know how Charlie Kirk? Someone said, like, if I walk onto a plane and I see a black pilot, it makes them feel uncomfortable. Yeah. Something along those lines. And then there was an influencer that I follow, and he's like, he's a black man. He's like, when I walk onto a plane, I see a black pilot, I know I'm in good hands because they had to be 10 times better.
That's how I look at it.
Than a white pilot.
That's exactly
to
how
get
I
to where they're at.
Yeah, that's how I feel. For sure.
That's how I feel too.
I'm like, oh, dude, this guy's good. We're safe.
I mean? Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to DEI, it's just creating slots for people, but you have to be the best of the best of the best to get in those slots for those people. Yeah. If we're talking about the actual numbers and specifics of DEI.
Yeah. But I will say, okay, not DEI related, but the same kind of mechanism of, like, elevating somebody is not in your level and just giving them an extra boost. So when Eric my husband was doing the in the Marine Corps, when you transfer, when you're a Marine Corps officer and you go into officer training school, then you go into your school, like your. Yeah. So my husband was in communications officer, so you get to comm school. But then you rank. So in the beginning, when you're doing the first one, it's the general one where everybody's graduated from college, and now all these guys are going, and people are going to train to be officers. So they have to learn how to do all the grunt work, which is like how to shoot, how to do mapping, how to, like, they drop you in the middle of a freaking, like, jungle in Quantico and, like, go find all these, like, boxes with, like, whatever tagged on them, and then you're mapping to see, like, okay, here's a compass. There's snakes. There's everything out there. Black widows. Like, it's dangerous. It's like, find your way back. And so there's other things, like he had to find that there's, like, a sniper exercise where they go through the FBI, all the things that they have, like, fake bunker things, and you you act like you're doing insurgency, whatever. So there was like an exercise where they all have to train and try to get the sniper. And Eric, my husband, was one of the people that was one of the only people that ever caught the sniper. And so he ended up ranking. When they do the rank, they have everybody in the class ranks who they think is their peer rank. So like number 1, 2, 3, whatever. And then there's the officers that are the teachers, and then they rank. I believe it's like the score. Yeah, like the score from that. And then that's supposed to be calculated to decide, like, when you choose your first, second, and third places that you want to be stationed at, you're supposed to, based on your ranking, you get first choice.
Oh, okay.
Or second choice. So, like, you earn, and then these rankings stay with you forever in your career. So if they have to be like,
well,
how do we decide if this person is good? Well, let's go back. Has he always been good? Has he always, from the very beginning, has he always scored? Where he scored at the top of his class? So when it's time to do the ranking, he gets called in by the captain of the entire Officer Candidate School, OCS, that's what it's called, Officer Candidate School. And this captain actually is asking him if you were ranked number 1, but you're obviously going to do great in your life, so I'm going to actually bump your ranking down so that this guy can be bumped up higher because he needs the boost. And the other person was not black ranked. It was not like a person of color. It was another white person. But that's a
DEI.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
But not but not in the way that like you.
But who did that guy know where he needed that boost and got that pool?
I think they were friendly. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can have a friendly relationship sometimes with your commanding officer. Sometimes you just do, and then they give you a favor.
I hope he's doing well because he got the boost he needed.
And then this captain had the nerve to.
Everybody deserves.
He even like when I met him. Because there's some kind of, they always have these events with the spouses to come, like a G.I. Jane Day or where I get to do.
Oh,
like,
that's cute.
Yeah, no, but you're shooting rifles. Like I was the only spouse that like laying down, shot a rifle at a freaking target way down. I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like you're shooting real weapons. Okay, putting night vision goggles on and walking on like balance beam things in the dark and doing all like they want you to understand what they go through to a certain extent, right? So he comes to me and goes, hey, ma'am, I would just like to apologize for all. And he just apologized to me, like, you are such a piece of shit that you know you're wrong. You're coming to, like, sort of, like, apologize to me about it. Like, that's crazy, bro. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
So I can't say that it doesn't happen to people in general that you are getting passed over by somebody who is less. It is possible. I'm not going to negate that if that's happened to you, I'm not negating that's happened to you out in the world. Because it does happen. And I know that the world makes you seem like you're being a crybaby if you're like, well, that's not fair, because you have to suck it up because historically your people have been the oppressor.
You're right.
I validate that sucks. That's a hard thing to swallow. But for the greater good, all of us have had to. For every woman has to suck up some freaking drama, some like sacrifice, some everything for somebody else to function. So if you have to do, I know it's hard and it's tough, but lean into the belief that like something that's really meant to you
and leadership.
Yeah, you just have to. You just got to find your pivot, really. Yeah. Instead of like thinking like this person took it or this person, look at that, or this.
Oh, you did the thumbs up.
I didn't know.
It's like that damn thing.
I hate
funny.
That. It's okay.
It just pops, and it pops up right over your face. That's the hard part.
Maybe it's a prompt for everybody to give us a like and subscribe
and a follow.
Anyway, I just decided I have to. Immigrants are not criminals, but the president.
So mine says vote them out with a little peace sign.
All right. Well, I think that's going to be it for this episode. Are we the only ones?
Yes. Are we the only ones who think that there needs to be a better balance to cancel culture?
Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. Give us a like and a follow, and rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening to it. You can find us at Are We the Only Ones Pod on all the platforms now. I think Kathy started a TikTok.
Yeah, that one is the only one that's Are We the Only Ones podcast that I'm actually controlling. TikTok.
Okay, so that one's Are We the Only Ones podcast.
Yeah.
But our Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Gmail.
Yeah.
And Substack. Are We the Only Ones Pod.
And we're trying to do every single platform trying to do different content, so you guys aren't looking at the same stuff. Yeah. So you can go and there'll be like a different vibe for each one a little bit.
Yes.
Or different like versions of things. Maybe TikTok will actually do dancing on there, but you won't see us necessarily. Or I will, but you won't see it on other platforms. So like we may not put it on the Facebook, so that would be like that. Okay?
I feel like our TikTok should be a little bit more of our goofy.
Yeah, we can be goofy and stuff.
That would be a fun one.
All right.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.